Hello, it's Tuesday afternoon, it's 4 p.m. in Switzerland and in Central Europe, and it's Space Cafe WebTalk time. Our Space Cafe WebTalk, 33 minutes with Chris Kunstadter, will begin very soon. Thanks for joining us today for our talk about the role of space insurance in the insurance as well, but the role of space insurers in the changing space ecosystem. As always, we appreciate your participation and ongoing feedback. Spacewatch Global is a Europe-based online platform for information in and about space and new space activities in a geopolitical context. And I would like to thank all our private and corporate supporters that showed their commitment to keeping our independent journalism alive. We really appreciate that. I know many of you are already familiar with our website, our bi-weekly and daily newsletters, and the Space Cafe podcast. The last one featured René Laufer about science and fiction. Just give it a listen, a very interesting conversation. And as well, for all our fans of audio content, we have new episodes in the Space Cafe radio. You know, these are the short podcasts that are there to entertain and to inform you with Matthias Wachter, Nicola Peter, Greg Kushner, and Dora Baboch, and more to come later this week. We also keep our fan shop open online for you to support us actively to become a space watcher. If you have missed any of our previous web talks, we have an archive available on our website in the events section and on YouTube. So, for me, personally, insurance companies, insurance business is mystical, not to say strange. I simply don't understand it. But I also recognize how the impact of insurance company may help us for a better, more organized, more coordinated, and more sustainable space environment. Not only that, I believe every word I say, I also want to set the bar high for my guest today, as I'm very convinced that he will master this entire conversation very well. With that, a very warm welcome, Chris Kunstadter, to our Space Cafe today.
Thank you, Torsten.
Just to introduce you to the few people that does not know you, because insurers are working in the dark, or in the shadows, not in the dark. Chris is the head of space at AXA XL, and he is actively involved in all aspects of AXA XL space activities, including technical, financial, and actuarial analysis, policy constructions, claims handling, industry outreach, and business development. He is a recognized leader in global space risk management issues, and for over 3 decades, he has worked closely with satellite operators and manufacturers, launch providers, government agencies, and others to enhance industry understanding of space risk management, space situational awareness, and mission success best practices. And he served on numerous failure investigation teams for satellites and launch vehicles. Chris joined XL in 2006 after 23 years at US AIG, where he was executive vice president in charge of the Aerospace and IT department. Again, Chris, welcome to our show today. Let's start here with a very simple question for you at least. What does a space insurer insure, and what is your business actually?
Well, thanks, Torsten. Well, first, I just want to say it's really a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate being invited to participate in this excellent series. And it's also nice to see some very familiar names in the participants. So I'm glad to have everyone here. Space insurance plays a very critical role in enabling innovation and investment. We take virtually all the technical risk from launch onwards through the end of life of a satellite. We cover launch vehicles, satellites, space platforms, anything having to do with activity in space, even people. And so we provide a very key element to the space economy by providing a backstop for participants in the space economy to be able to invest, to be able to innovate, we are a very we try not to be the tail wagging the dog, but we really do try to provide a service that enables these very important activities.
Now, you're working in a huge company, AXA. So what impact has space in this huge environment? I assume multi-billion-dollar environment.
Yes, AXA is a very large company. The division that I work for is based here in the U.S. The parent company, of course, is based in Paris. Even though we have a small team of 5 people in the US and in France, we are a very key part of a lot of elements of the AXA infrastructure. We get a lot of companies, a lot of large industrial companies who want to buy insurance from us, and so we help those relationships within the bigger AXA family. Our main clients are satellite operators, but we also insure satellite manufacturers, launch service providers, banks, and so on. So we really have a very broad cross-section of companies that and organizations that we work with on a direct basis.
So is your company, or are the guys in your leadership board, are they excited when it comes to space? I mean, do they want to see rockets flying, or what happened in the case a rocket explodes and a claim comes in? So
well, yeah, they definitely want to see rockets flying successfully, as we all do.
yeah, of course.
But we're in the business of risk, and I like to make sure that my team, that my management, that our clients, that the industry knows that we embrace risk. We're not afraid to take risk. We are an insurance company. We're compensated for taking risk. And so that's a key element of what we do within the AXA group. We really spend a lot of time analyzing risk. We make sure that we understand all the technical aspects, all the commercial aspects, all the ways that the activity that we participate in affects the not only the global space economy, but the AXA group.
Okay, understood. What is insured today and what is not? Can you give us an overview with all these questions? I'm not expecting that you go into the nitty-gritty details and telling us the secrets of your business, but to just give us a feeling about it.
Absolutely. Well, I like to have a smart industry. I like to have smart management, smart clients. I even want smart competitors, because I want everyone to make the right decisions in this business. So I have no problem talking about the business and explaining exactly what we do. As I said, most of our clients are satellite operators, and large and small. We've seen a shift from the large geosatellite operators in recent years. In the past 5 or 10 years, we've now seen much more activity, obviously, in low Earth orbit, small satellites, entrepreneurial space. We are the leader in insurance solutions for entrepreneurial space clients. We have a very robust business with them, and we really push hard to be part of the entrepreneurial space market. It's a very exciting time to be doing that. We've developed some unique products and unique capabilities in that realm. We also insure launch providers, so the big global launch providers, but also the small entrepreneurial startups, and then financial institutions, space station operators, human spaceflight participants. Pretty much anyone who's going to go to space can be insured. Anything that's going to take place in space can be insured. So in terms of what we don't insure, there's very little that we don't insure. We even participate on insurance on civil programs and government programs, because they're often procured commercially or launched commercially. So we actually have a very broad set of clients. roughly half of all launches that take place are insured or carry some insurance on them. So a lot of the activity that does go on that you don't really hear about every day is insured. And yes, when my management hears about an accident, a failure, something like that, it certainly makes their headlines. But we try to emphasize the fact that we're engaged every single day in space activity.
When you say about half of the launches are insured, does it mean that also half of the payloads are insured? So half of the satellites, whatever, what was it last year, 2,000 satellites that went up to space? Or can we also say 50% are insured, or is it not right?
That's a good question. So I would say that until about 3 years ago, yes, about half of all satellites that were launched were insured. In the last several years, with the deployment of the Starlink constellation, 2,000 satellites roughly, those are not insured. They're self-insured by SpaceX, and so we don't provide insurance for that. So that has sort of changed that 50% number in terms of satellites. But some of the launches that carry uninsured primary payloads also carry insured secondary payloads. So they do carry some insurance on some of those launches.
Let's look back in the last years. So 2018, 19, 20, we saw two effects in the market. A decline of the big birds, the big geostationary satellites, and launch failures, unfortunately, are in quite a sequence. So both are not good for your business, I assume. Are you agree with that? Or would you say, failure is an option for us?
First, if there were no failures, if there were never any failures, I wouldn't have a job and my team wouldn't have a job. So not that we want that to happen, but we're here to protect, to provide that protection. So yes, indeed, we've seen a number of launch failures in the last several years, but we expect that. New launch vehicles, when they're introduced, typically fail on the first launch, typically fail about 30% of the time, and on the second launch, about 25% of the time. That's okay. We know that. We understand that. And as I said at the beginning, we embrace risk. So we're willing to insure first launches, second launches, and what have you. And we just want to make sure that launch providers understand that as much as they test, as much as they do all that they can do, there still will be failures, and that's okay. So between the failures of launches in the last several years and the reduction in big geo satellites and the move towards LEO satellites, LEO constellations and the like, we have seen some changing dynamics in the space insurance market, where instead of needing capacity for large $500, $600, $800 million launches, now we're seeing many more launches in the range of, say, anywhere from $1 million up to $100 million. That does breed competition, because the same capital is providing the coverage for those $500 million launches is competing for those $100 million launches. So that has had an impact on the business. But we, like I said, we at AXA XL have been pushing very hard to be the premier insurer of new launch vehicles and small launch vehicles.
It fits perfectly in the direction I would like to go now. How do you master the move from the big geo birds to the fleet of LEOs? I mean, you just spoke about launches, but there is something to launch, and it's usually small LEO satellites. So how do you adapt your own business to that?
Yeah, good question. So we recognize that the in-orbit failure rate of big geo satellites is somewhere around 1% per year. So maybe around 1% of big geo satellites fail each year. And there are currently about 500 geo satellites in orbit, active geo satellites. As you move down, not just to LEO, but to smaller in general, smaller satellites tend to be built with less redundancy on board, less testing. They tend to be pushed out faster. So what we find is that the smaller satellites below about 140 kilograms they generally fail at a rate per year of about 12 to 14%. So it's a much higher, it's an order of magnitude higher. When you get down to CubeSats, it's more like maybe 30% of CubeSats fail before the end of their mission. So it makes our job a little more interesting because we really have to analyze the risk that we're taking. If we're insuring a big geosatellite, we have a very good history of what has happened with those. We know what questions to ask, what to look for, and the like. Whereas if we're insuring, say, a CubeSat for the launch vehicle flight and then, say, a year of operation, we really have to pay a lot of attention to to the things that we know can go wrong. So it is a different way of underwriting. It's a different way of assessing the risk. But we go in with our eyes wide open, and we know what to expect.
I regret that I asked this question because 30% failure rate is not what I expected, honestly. But I mean, you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair point. But I mean, you mentioned before you have a team of 5 people in the US, and so. But I mean, with this amount of satellites be launched and insured potentially by you, I mean, you can't send your engineers to all these places for all these check marks. So how is that done today?
There's enough commonality across satellite types, mission types, manufacturers that we've learned through experience and through failures some of the questions to ask. We do spend a lot of time visiting the manufacturers and visiting our clients, the satellite operators, the launch providers. We really try to get out. Obviously, with COVID, pandemic, we haven't been able to get out as much, but we're starting to get out more. And we're starting to have that opportunity to actually visit these companies, visit these organizations, and talk with them about their processes and how they go about their business. That's really, we do get out there. And like I said, we have, there are 5 of us altogether, 3 of us in the US, 2 of us in France. And so we really do try to cover the geography as much as we can.
What are the biggest challenges in that case for you as an insurer today? I mean, it feels so light when you say, oh, it's just risk, we are here to insure risk. And you say, okay, I feel welcome. But at the end, it's hard decisions to be taken. So, and
absolutely,
especially what comes down the road now.
Absolutely. So we look at them as challenges, but we also look at them as opportunities. We look at them as opportunities because it gives us the chance to innovate, to develop new insurance products, and to work with the industry to try and get people to be as smart and as responsible as possible. So I would say one of the things that we've recognized in the last, say, 5 years or so is the increase in collision risk in low Earth orbit, particularly in low Earth orbit. There's collision risk in GEO also. But one of the things that we're working on is trying to characterize the LEO collision risk. So we're working with some industry partners to develop specific tools that we can use to actually assess the probability of collision, the consequences of collision at various altitudes, various satellite sizes, various materials, and that sort of thing. So we're working very hard on that. It's the thing that we don't know is we know that, let's say, GEO satellites fail 1% per year. How much additional failure is there at a given altitude for a given type of satellite? Is it an additional 0.001% collision risk, which really is a de minimis impact on the pricing? Or is it a 0.5% where it's a 50% increase in the collision, in the overall risk? So we're working on that, trying to figure out what the actual probability of collision is, because this is a very serious issue, and it's one that's only going to get more difficult for us. So I would say that's a big challenge. New launch vehicles, new satellites, new applications, new companies. Sure. Those are challenging, but that's really the very interesting, the fun stuff.
Okay. And I think we have to assess that many of the companies that are started right now are also started by old legs in the industry. So rarely that you have some youngsters that start them completely. We see them as well, but I think most of them are ex whatever. Another topic, and that's very close to our heart, is sustainability. I mean, it's obvious for your business. So
Sure.
how can, and you talked about collision risk, how can you insure against debris, especially, I mean, if we don't know when it will hit you or what hits you, so
Sure.
who to claim from? But on that, just one note, kudos to the White House for going to the Assad ban, I think yesterday or today. I mean, that's great to see a first step in that. I mean, not all debris is caused by ASADs, as we know, but I mean, a significant amount, obviously. So, but how can you insure against debris?
Yeah, let me address the ASAT statement. We certainly applaud the U.S. government and Vice President Harris for coming out with a very strong statement on direct ascent kinetic ASAT band. We think that's very important. That's a critical move. We were surprised by the Cosmos 1408 ASAT test back the end of last year. Disappointed, obviously, and worried for the people on the International Space Station and the like. So we're very happy to see the U.S. government step up and do that. We trust that others will follow. AXA Group is very focused on sustainability, ESG in general, and so when we look at the risk of collision as an environmental issue, because it really is, that really is it's an important aspect to the ESG movement within AXA Group. Our insurance covers virtually all technical risk, including collision. So our insurance we already insure against collision, and that's why we need to characterize it. That's why we're working to develop this tool that will allow us to assess the collision risk at various altitudes. So we're already insuring it. The thing to understand from our point of view is that if there is a collision particularly in low Earth orbit, that causes a large insurance claim, it really will have a very chilling and immediate effect on space insurance. You will see some space insurance providers becoming very concerned about providing that product. And that's not good for anyone because, again, as an enabler of investment and innovation, if space insurance decreases or goes away, it makes it very difficult for the space economy to keep on going. So we look at collision risk as an environmental problem, and we're trying to address it in the way that we would address environmental issues.
Okay, thank you. Another new technology and another new thing comes upon all of us, and it's AI. So how how critical do you see potentially the upcoming role of AI in maneuvering in space? I mean, I think Starlink Starlink announced it once that they suggest these maneuver capabilities based on AI, and I know many experts in the industry are running against and said, no, don't do that. I mean, don't take the human out of the loop. I mean, how do you see that? Is
think
that's something we can compare to driving autonomously on the streets?
Essentially, in a word, yes. I think AI is one element of the very rapid progress of our industry, and I think it's a very good one. I think we need to be prepared to have AI be an important component of all aspects of space, from things like space situational awareness, tracking objects. The AI can play a key role there, and certainly in autonomous driving, if you will, in space. You know, it will take a while, and there will be some bumps in the road or some bumps in the in space before it gets fully integrated. But it is being developed, and as you know, there are some operators who are using elements of AI and machine learning to make sure that they can navigate properly in space. It's inevitable. It's progress, and to us, it's a good thing.
Okay. Another of these new technologies or new or upcoming services is on-orbit servicing. So extending the lifetime of a satellite, repairing a satellite, all of the above. So
Yeah.
are you for it, or is that just adding another risk for you? So how do you treat that?
We're very big fans of on-orbit servicing, and there are a lot of aspects of on-orbit servicing. There's life extension, there's inspection, there's repair, there's collision avoidance, there's post-mission disposal, active debris removal. On-orbit servicing is a broad range of activities. We've worked very closely with providers of, for example, life extension and active debris removal. We're working very closely with some of those providers to help them understand not just the risks of what they're doing, but the risks that they can mitigate with their services. So I think life extension is one that is has a very bright future for all types of missions. I think particularly in GEO, that's where we've seen it so far, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it. And so we're convinced that servicing is an important element of keeping objects working, but also of risk management, because it can help to mitigate some risks.
And does it go all the way towards filling station in space,
Absolutely.
or recycling station in space? I mean, all these huge projects which we laughed about 10 years ago, and now suddenly, hey, this seems to be real.
It's happening. So you know, the term on-orbit servicing is actually being replaced with the acronym OSAM, on-orbit servicing, assembly, and manufacturing, because it's meant to cover the broad range of things that are going to be happening in the next 2 years, 5 years, 20 years. And yes, that's all part of it. It's very exciting. It's opportunities for us to provide insurance for these services, but also opportunities for us to use these services to mitigate the risks of that our clients might face. Absolutely, it's very exciting.
Awesome! I learned a new abbreviation. So, and I'm so sorry to be so outdated with with the terms I'm using.
You know our business. So always a new acronym every day.
Yeah. I mean, we can't avoid talking about the impact of the war in Ukraine on the space sector. We have seen these terrible pictures, also with the big aircrafts that were destroyed.
Sure.
How does that impact your business, or does it impact your business as well? I mean, besides the delayed or postponed launches, or as an impact of this war?
Absolutely. So, you know, it's a terrible tragedy. It really is, and it's uncalled for and a needless waste of life. And that's the first thing to recognize, and we all know that. It's very important for us to be able to assess what's going on. So, for example, satellite imagery has played a big part in a lot of the assessment of the terrible damage that's gone on in Ukraine. From a business point of view, yes, we have had a very robust business insuring. You know, we insure space activity around the globe. We've been insuring Russian launches of satellites on Russian launch vehicles, even launches to the International Space Station by Soyuz and Progress capsules. That business has now gone away. It's still insured, but it's retained in the Russian insurance market. The other aspect is, of course, just the delay in the launches that will inevitably take place of the satellites that were initially scheduled to go on Russian rockets, but now will go on other launch vehicles. So it's had an impact. You know, we look at the business impact, we assess it. Of course, we have, you know, we report to our management about the financial impact. But I think really for us, the impact is really, it's that emotional distress about actual, you know, seeing a war in action. That's really what affects us.
Before we come to this over a dozen questions from our really engaged audience today, and I can tell you we can't go through all of them. I would like to ask you about the upcoming workshop in Lausanne, that we are a great media partner. We are delighted to be a media partner. So for all of you that haven't heard about this workshop, maybe you can give us some background. Why is that? Because I was so fascinated by the depths of where you want to go. I mean, with hardening satellites and all of that, where I say, wow, that just sounds cool. So
yeah, so the Kinetic Space, it's the low Earth orbit Kinetic Space Safety Workshop. The website is kineticsspacesafety.com, and it'll be May 4th and 5th in Lausanne. AXA XL is a sponsor, along with Leo Labs, ClearSpace, EPFL, Secure World Foundation, and we really appreciate the work of our co-sponsors and of our team. We actually had a call yesterday. We had 2 calls today just on the planning of the conference. We're really happy, Torsten, that you'll be there too. I think that's very important to get the word out. And we would invite anyone who has any interest at all in space traffic management or any aspect of space activity to check out the website again, kineticsspacesafety.com. What we want to do, it's not just going to be presentations and speeches, it's actually going to be a workshop. We want to have actual actions and solutions. We want results to come out of this, so that we can talk with operators, we can talk with policymakers and legislators, we can talk with everyone involved in the entire space ecosystem about the things that need to be done. These aren't issues that we can simply talk about and study. We need to act. We really need to act now. We need to act to clean up space, to make sure that people act responsibly. Being responsible in space gets you in the door, but you don't aspire to be responsible. That's the least you can do. So we're trying to encourage people to go above and beyond, and that's what a lot of this workshop is going to be around. So we certainly encourage everyone to go to kineticsspacesafety.com.
We will put the link also in our recap later on, and in the thank you mail to all of you. But is it available to everyone? And what is the ideal profile you would like to see there? Is it the CEO level, or is it the engineer that really is creative?
Well, we want all levels, because we want the people who actually implement the actions, but we also want the people who make the policy and who decide on the direction. So we're really open up to all types of participants. Anybody with any interest in space traffic management should be involved in it. We have a number of keynote speakers. We have a number of panels. Again, it's a discussion. It's really a discussion of ideas around things as simple as, you know, debris mitigation, debris prevention, all the aspects of space traffic management that are key to coming up with solutions to fix this very critical problem.
It's also available online, I assume.
Yes, there's an in-person option as well as a virtual option. We'd love to have you there in person. We would love to have people there in person, but if you can't be there in person, we do encourage you to sign up for the virtual option. Because again, this is meant to be interactive. It's meant to be very a lot of discussion and problem solving. So
let's use a few more minutes. Our production team is waving the red flags already, but we will take a few questions here. I will start with the one from Jim Armour. Chris, is there a Space Insurers industry association? And if so, what policy does it advocate for both US and abroad?
So that's an interesting question. There's a group called the International Union of Aerospace Insurers, and AXA XL is a member of that, and it's both aviation insurers and space insurers. There's a space risks study group within that, and we focus on critical issues. We have not come out with any specific, say, statements or white papers or anything like that, but we recognize the importance of actually being the voice of the insurance industry in the space world. So we do plan to be more outspoken about some of these issues. Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Then Angela Matters asks, so do you foresee that without satellite maneuverability, it will be harder, more expensive to get insurance in the future? What consideration do you currently give to the ability to maneuver?
Yeah, so maneuverability is a very critical element that should be incorporated in all satellites. Anything that's at or above 400 kilometers, the altitude of the space station, really should have maneuver capability, whether it's propulsion or some other type of capability, but it has to be active and it has to be something that actually works, not just for post-mission disposal, but for collision avoidance. So do we see it as a requirement? No, we see it as an element of the risk that we assess. As with anything, we assess the risk that having or not having that element presents. We respond to the risks that we face. We don't tell people how to operate or build satellites, but we do respond to the risk that they present to us.
Okay. Abhinav had I would say, an interesting question. So, about the propulsion system. So, what are the nuances related to ensuring satellite propulsion systems as opposed to satellite launch vehicles? Are there any notable shifts in trends that dictates propulsion insurance?
So we don't separate insurance of the propulsion system from other aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's an element of a satellite. We assess all the elements, and we include the risk of propulsion. We've seen some notable advances in propulsion, both electric and chemical propulsion. Everything from small sub 1U propulsion systems that can be put on a small satellite for collision avoidance or PMD, to some very innovative propellants and things like that. So we always encourage innovation. We want to see innovation. We want to see new technologies, and certainly propulsion is one of those where that we assess as being a very critical part of any satellite. Again, we encourage maneuverability. And so propulsion is a key element of that. We don't discriminate one type versus another. We assess the risk of each kind.
Great. Valentin, Ada, asking a very typical question for him. So, how to tell an autonomous flying satellite to behave sustainable?
Well,
thank you, Valentin.
That's an interesting question. Ultimately it comes down to people, and it comes down to artificial intelligence and machine learning. So the satellite will do what it's told to do, what it has learned to do. And that ultimately goes back to what it is told to learn. So again, it's a developing technology, as it is with automobiles. I think it's going to take some time to come, to be a very key part of attitude control and station keeping and collision avoidance. But I think it's inevitably going to happen. I think, the phrase we have in English is garbage in, garbage out. So you want to make sure that you're not giving it garbage to have it react on that. That needs to be well-founded. And I think the space industry will probably learn a lot from the automotive industry in terms of how to use AI for navigation. Absolutely.
Sabine Pongruber, and that's my last question, so promise, referring to the 1/3 of launches that are insured. So why do launch operators not insure?
Oh, good question. Some of them, so about half of all launches are insured. And the ones that aren't insured are sometimes the maybe it's a national security launch, and so it's really insured by the taxpayers. Maybe it's a civil program where it's not really a replaceable, something like James Webb Space Telescope. You know, if they had bought insurance, if someone had bought insurance for that, what do you do? Spend another 15 years building a new one? It really is the insurance really is more for the economic and business aspects of the risk. So sometimes there are insured satellites on an otherwise uninsured launch, but about half of all launches carry some insurance on.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm not just afraid, I know that we're running out of time and that we're over our 33 minutes, but thank you very much, Chris. It was such a pleasure to have you here in the Space Cafe today. And we see from the questions there's so much hunger for more. And I would like to quote just what Leah Chelly sent into the chat here. Thank you both. This has been the best 33 minutes I've spent in space talks in weeks.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Torsten. Thank you to the whole Space Cafe team. We really appreciate having this opportunity.
Yeah. So, and I think that will be just the start of a series. So, because there's hunger. Chiara, over to you.
Thank you so much. It was really absolutely fascinating to sit back and listen to this talk. Before we leave you all for today, we do have a list of really exciting upcoming events as well that I'd really like to recap quickly. So next week on the 26th of April, we have our next 33 minutes with Rodrigo da Costa, the DG of USPA. And on the same day, we have our next event from the Space Arbitration Association with Laura Zelensky, where she has our panel that are going to be discussing the question, should we expect interstate space arbitration? Then following that, on the 28th of April, we have our next Space Cafe Scotland by the wonderful Angela Mathis, who is also in the room today. And she will be talking to Frank Strang from Saxoford Spaceport. Just a day later, on the 29th of April, we will have our next Space Cafe Canada by Dr. Jessica West, who will be talking with Stephen Mathieu from Maritime Launch Services about launches from Canada. On the 2nd of May, we're having some construction here right now, sorry about that. So on the 2nd of May, we are going to have our next Space Cafe Austria by the wonderful Judith Delaney, and she will be talking to Thomas Rosensky of SB. On the 3rd of May, we will have our next 33 minutes with Dr. Jana Robinson of PSSI, discussing the upcoming conference in June. And on the 10th of May, 33 minutes with Nicole Thalhofer of the BDLI. So stay tuned. All our events are going to be online on Eventbrite.
And you see, we keep the level quite up. So we are very excited about all of these talks that are coming up in the next weeks and months. So
definitely. And as always, we love to hear your feedback. So please keep on checking in with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Don't forget to sign up for our daily and our bi-weekly newsletters. And if you want to treat yourselves to something special, become a Space Watcher today or help us out in our supporter program. Again, a huge thank you to Chris for this inspiring talk, for being our guest, and thank you again to the entire team behind the scenes for doing this great job week in and week out. Thank you to this wonderful audience for your amazing questions and for being so engaged. It's really wonderful to see this again. And I hope that you all stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you for joining us. I hope to see you in the next weeks. And in the meantime, visit our website and follow us on social media. And don't forget, become a space watcher. Thank you.
Absolutely. And for many of you, hope to see you in May then in Lausanne in 2 weeks from now. So it's not that far away.
It's coming up soon.
It's coming up soon. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, Chris. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.